This is Behind Closed Deals.
We'll be chatting with multifamily maestros
Uncovering their strategies
and unraveling the latest market happenings.
bringing you intel you can't buy.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Behind Closed Deals. I'm Cam Benz. Today's episode is going to be Ryan and I going back and forth. Ryan Stockamp on the call and on the podcast is a member of the team here. He's a broker. He's based in Indianapolis today, but soon to be based in Columbus, Ohio. And so we've got a lot of positive feedback on just the podcast we've done with internal discussions, updates on the market, our thoughts. And we want to do a series where we interview various people on the team and just talk about how they came to the team, their general background, and just thoughts on the market, thoughts on brokerage, just whatever it is. And so this is going to be the first one of that series, but expect to see more over the next year or so. You can learn a little bit more about each member of the team here. So, all Ryan, are you excited?
Yes, I am.
Is this your first podcast?
I think it is my first podcast other than the Available Properties podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Well, they're fun and we've gotten a lot of listeners, so it'll be good. So I thought it would just be good for us to start off on just where you grew up and how you got into brokerage. So you were born in Columbus, is that right?
I was born in Hilliard, which is a suburb up on the northwest corner of the city.
Okay. And when did you move to Indiana?
I moved to Indiana, so I grew up, lived in Hilliard until I was 18, ended up going to Indiana University to study finance and real estate at Kelly in Bloomington. So I guess I moved when I was 18 and I've lived here ever since.
And so just thinking you're going to move back to Columbus, Ohio, what part of Columbus will you move to?
Definitely downtown. I love living downtown in Indianapolis. Expect more of the same in Columbus. And luckily, our CBRE office is in downtown Columbus, unlike here in Indy where we're on the north side. So it'll work out perfect.
What are the best things to do in Columbus?
In Columbus, the only things we're really missing in Columbus that we have in Indy, there's no Colts, there's no Pacers. So a lot of things that I'm doing, it's still going to the bars. Love the Blue Jackets. It's the NHL team based in Columbus. It's always a lot of fun.
I'm missing that here.
Yeah. The Clippers is a minor league baseball team. Guess we have that here in Indy too. But the park is right in the Arena District in downtown Columbus, which is probably where I'll live as well.
Do you go to the minor league baseball, the Indians here?
I have a couple times. It's always fun. I can't say I know anybody on the team or I'm a big fan, but it's fun going to the games.
What about OSU? Do you go to the OSU games back in Columbus?
I grew up a Michigan fan. So my mom went to Michigan. My dad went to Eastern Michigan. Both of them grew up in Detroit. So I grew up hating OSU, which was an interesting dynamic. 99% of the people living in Columbus are huge OSU fans. And I took a lot of crap growing up.
And then you went to IU.
Yes, I did. Yeah. So I'm all over the Big Ten.
And so did you study real estate at IU? Did you do the real estate major?
I did. I did not know that I wanted to do real estate. When I first came to IU, I was expecting to go to law school when I graduated. So I wanted to get a little bit of a background in business. And then my mom owns a law firm. And I always thought I would join her firm. And then when I was in college, I had a couple legal internships working for the Ohio Automotive Dealer Association and then at my mom's law firm, and just realized it was not for me. Sitting at a desk, reading contracts, redlining them. All the power to attorneys. That's what we need, but it's not for me.
Yeah, it's a necessary thing. Not something I want to do, but very necessary in our business. And so why real estate then? Why did you get into real estate?
So, I mean, real estate, I love it because you're not doing the same thing every day. You know this, but we're working on the financial side. We're working on sales. We're doing due diligence. So it's a little bit of something new every day, which I loved. I think everybody in real estate would tell you we're here to make money. So that's definitely a part of it. And I knew that being a broker was a path to making real money. Even as a young professional, you can get in the business, start doing deals right away. Whereas I feel like a lot of industries, there's like a longer runway to get to a point like to where you want to be.
Right. Right. So it was really brokerage that attracted you to real estate. It wasn't real estate itself. And then you found brokerage.
Yeah, I would say when I first started looking, I was exploring different options, development, acquisitions, asset management, other things. And then as I started interviewing with these companies and they're telling me, what are you going to do every day? I think it gets back to doing something different every day is what attracted me. It's the sales. I like the sales part. You're still getting to be involved in the finance, underwriting. I've learned so much about marketing from Christine and Carrie. And so I do. I mean, genuinely, I enjoy real estate, and I don't think I knew that I would enjoy it as much as I do now that I'm in brokerage. So it's been exciting.
Yeah, but the exact same for me. When I was in college, I did a number of different sales jobs. I worked at a consulting company doing cold calls. I worked for an app, a startup app, selling their marketing services to all the random restaurants in Bloomington. I knew that I liked sales. I knew that I liked the fast pace and like the fulfillment of, closing a deal, the rush of, chasing after deals, whether it's getting a restaurant to sign up on an app or trying to get a listing in brokerage. It's the same feeling. I loved it. I did not know that I was going to do real estate either. It was just by chance. I met a guy who said, this is something you should get into, and introduced me to the team.
Yeah. I like sales for the same reason I love sports. It feels like you get wins all the time, and there are losses, of course, too. But when you're working on a team, it has kind of a competitive feeling in our office, just like sports goes.
That's right. And so how did you originally get connected to our team?
So I was interviewing for brokerage jobs kind of all over the country a little bit in Texas, Miami, on the East Coast. And then my dad's company was selling a property in downtown Indianapolis here. And so I connected with Hannah Ott on our team and was just asking questions about, what can I expect in brokerage? What kind of split should I be negotiating? Would you recommend being an analyst first? And she was like, we want to expand our presence in the Midwest. We dominate in Indiana, but we would like to grow into Ohio. So if you would be interested in coming back to Columbus, that's something that we would be interested in exploring. And it just kind of kicked off from there.
Right. Right. And so how long ago was that?
I graduated in 2022. So it's been almost exactly 3 years now.
Do you regret not moving to Miami?
There are times during the winter when I look out the window here at the office and it's a little, and I think, that 80-degree weather sounds good. But no, I think being in Columbus is going to be great. Near family, near friends. It's a place that I know, which I think is definitely beneficial for real estate. Just makes our conversations, being able to talk about, this is a great location. It's way easier to say that when you've lived there for 20 years.
For sure. I also think it's a completely different job, investment sales as a broker in Miami, in New York or Chicago versus a smaller Midwest city. And it's that you can dominate a market here. And by dominate a market, that means you have more than 50% market share. There's not many people, and I don't even know if there's anyone that has a 50% investment sales market share of Miami or a major city like that. It's super competitive. There's a lot of people calling on the same owners. That's true here too, but just think 5x.
Yeah.
All the more power to people who do it. I'm not sure I'm capable. So thinking back to when you first started as a broker or started on our team, what was the most surprising about learning about this job?
Surprising. That's a good question. I think I guess I'm thinking brokerage versus being an analyst. Being an analyst, it was how much I didn't know. I came in, and so I had that real estate degree, finance degree, and I had learned, all the important terms. Like I had already learned what bad debt is, what vacancy is, all these things. But when you sit down and you're learning the model for the first time, it's just kind of shocking how much there is that you don't know right out of college.
Right. Right. When I think back to when I started, I knew that, as a broker, you facilitate a sale, right? You create a market. I knew that. I did not think about how much information passes through our team, whether it's income statements, rent rolls, or just general industry gossip. And so you collect all this data and you pass it along to people. We create a lot of reports. Our team has done a lot of this with our expense study, our annual market overview, our real estate tax studies, all of that. I had no idea that was a part of this job.
Yeah.
I love it, but I had no idea that it was a part of it in the beginning.
Yeah, I never expected to be doing 100% unit walks at a 1,000-unit property, and the things you see in there are definitely surprising too.
Right. There's a lot of different facets to just facilitating a transaction, whether it's, the due diligence process or the actual data collection to put a property on the market. It's more than just the property itself. It's the location. It's all the rent comps. I hadn't really thought about that until you have to actually do all the work for something, right? Or be a part of the work. And it's pretty cool. Um, So thinking back now you've transitioned on to being a broker and you've been a part of our team for quite a while. What do you wish you would have done before joining the team to prep you for the job?
The easy one here is taking more internships that were related to the field. I think it would have been very beneficial to have a multifamily based internship, something like Sean Pingle on our team, who was with TWG before he joined. I
Yeah.
think having experience in an office doing, obviously it wasn't sales, but having that underwriting experience, looking at multifamily deals would have been key.
Yeah.
There's some other smaller things, like I wish I would have worked on my real estate license before I had joined. I ended up getting 3 licenses, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. Sorry, lights just turned off in here. Um, that's something I wish I would have spent time doing as I was a senior in college. I would definitely recommend that if there's any college kids that are interested in brokerage who are watching this podcast. I've always thought too, if I could be a professor and teach real estate at a college, I would teach it differently and be more focused on underwriting versus kind of abstract concepts, because I feel like that's going to make you a more marketable prospect post college. Because I got some experience looking at financials and we did underwrite a couple deals in college. But then when you get in the real world, it's like you're expected to be pumping out multiple BOVs a day on top of managing any other projects and tasks that come in, and I think that's just kind of, something that I could have worked on even in that time between graduating from college and joining the team.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree. I wish I would have done the same thing. I had one internship at a brokerage and I did learn a lot. I wish I would have done more of that. But I think back of how many, quote unquote, stupid questions I asked in the beginning. I remember at the brokerage is called Avis and Young. I was working there and everyone was talking about a coffer offer. I had no idea what that meant. Eventually I asked one of the brokers, I said, "What is that?" And they're like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So eventually I realized it's all for offers. It's just the Midwest coming through when they're saying it. And then I also remember starting at Ticket John Associates, and Hannah has me join a offer review call. This is my very first task. And at the end of the call, I said, "Can I ask you a couple of questions?" She goes, "Sure. What's earnest money?" Can you imagine not knowing what earnest money is today?
Oh, I don't think I would have when I first joined. I mean, when I was an analyst, you soak up so much just by listening to George and Hannah, you and Claire talk. Like you pick up on things, and then the nice part is I didn't have to ask as many questions because we sat in an open space where I could hear that. And I was literally looking things up on my computer, like Googling what is earnest money, so that I didn't look stupid.
That's right. That's right. But the underwriting part, I agree. Part of it is so subjective, where if you learn to underwrite from George Ticketjohn, I'm sure it's very different than going over to one of the active buyers in Indianapolis and saying, "How do you guys look at deals?" I think, the overall process of just learning how discounted cash flow works and what IRR is and how each of the different levers affects the deal, that's all the same. But the thought process on how to adjust expenses or increase revenue or layer over unit renovations and the overall business plan is very subjective. So it would be fun to get that perspective from an active value add buyer and then go to a new construction acquisition shop and learn how they look at deals and then go to a developer and see how they look at deals. It's all so different and so interesting.
Sure.
That's the fun part I think about our job is being able to see and interact with each of those types of buyers too, because they're very different in how they look at what we do and also what their business plan is.
Yep.
Um, so you were with us at Cushman and then came over to CB. What do you think the biggest differences are today, whether it's the people in the office or the brand. Do you notice a difference?
I do. I mean, I loved being at Cushman. I would never not
Mm,
being at Cushman. It was a great
I
company.
agree.
I enjoyed it. I would say there's a little bit different feel in the brand. I haven't had one time where I call somebody and I say, "Hi, this is Ryan Stockamp with CBRE," and they ask, "Who is CBRE?" That just comes with being the largest real estate service company in the world. I think it just it's an easy opening when you can tell people you work for a company like CBRE and they always know exactly who that is. That's really the biggest benefit. And I'd also say the people we work with at CV, we're just a little more ingrained with the other teams in these other Midwest markets. And it's had a huge effect on our business. Being able to work with Kurt and Marianne in Cincinnati, Hank and Jack up in Michigan, you just get a little bit more information from the market. Like we're hearing, we're struggling on selling this 60s deal in Detroit. Buyers want this IRR, they're looking for this ROE day one. And that's the kind of info that is very helpful for our underwriting purposes, and it kind of pushes us to be better too. When you hear about how successful they are in these markets, how they're getting there, it pushes us to be better.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I loved everyone that we worked with at Cushman. The Indianapolis office is full of a lot of great people. And I golfed last Friday with one of our old friends at Cushman, and it was just a fun time. And I think that I agree. The biggest difference is just that there's for multifamily more of a Midwest team that's built out, and we have a lot of crossover in the people that look and own in our markets. So you can say, oh, Pasco is looking at a deal in Indy. Well, they're also looking at a deal in Cincinnati, and we can compare notes as to how they're looking at our deals, or maybe Virgin Held calls and is looking at a deal here, and it's like, oh, I heard Jason Zick up in Chicago is working on a deal that's very similar to this one. You might want to go look at it, and there's just benefits, I think, to the client even. We get a lot of data from it, but I think the client also enjoys it as well because they feel like they're dealing with one big team, and we are all connected, and we do all actively talk and compare notes. But I think that's nice. I was thinking about this. How different do you think our job would be if you were not at CBRE and just at Ticket John Associates, or a brand that's only relevant to the local market? Do you think the job would be a lot different?
Wow, I think it's totally different. When I was interviewing with those other brokerage companies out of college, most of the time they're basically telling you they're going to sit you down at a desk. They're going to give you a phone and a list of contacts, and you just call them, call them, call them. That's all you're doing, just kind of trying to generate a lead with somebody who is probably getting those calls from 10 other people. And that's really what brought me to the team, being able to lean on George, Hannah, everybody else's experience and use that not as a crutch, but just to be able to lean into having the experience of the team and not just be a 22-year-old kid out of college saying, "Hey, let me sell your $20 million apartments." I think that's something that is probably tough because I know if I was an owner of those apartments, I would be looking for somebody with a little more experience as well. And being with the team is just a way to get that experience much quicker.
Right. I agree. I think that it's twofold. It's the CBRE brand, but it's also the local Indianapolis brand that's already been built long before you and I both joined the team. Where calling on someone that our team doesn't interact with already, and saying, "Hi, this is Ryan. I'm with CBRE." At least you're not fighting that battle with what is CBRE, what do they do, what are you calling me for? They're like, oh, CBRE, I see the signs around, and it would be a lot tougher with a brand that's not recognizable for a young person.
Yeah.
Once you already have a big resume, you can kind of overcome that pushback. I think in the beginning, the best thing for a young person to do is to join an established team, but also a very established brand.
Yeah.
And then, obviously the benefits of going and doing a pitch on a larger listing. It's very difficult to win a large listing as someone in their 20s, right? Um, because maybe the owner does believe you're going to go in, you're just going to work yourself to death over that listing. They'll believe that all day long. Do they think you're actually capable of conducting business? And how are you going to interact when times get tough? Are you going to solely focus on your commission, or are you going to focus on what's best for this deal and moving forward and what's best for the client? They know that George or Hannah has the capability of seeing past that. They're not worried about this dollar. They're not worried about this deal. They're worried about their overall brand and just doing the right thing. When they see a young person, unless they have that older person behind them saying, yep, that guy is on the right track, I'm not sure that you could get hired. I don't know. It would be a lot tougher. That's for sure. So I'm thinking also, you started as an analyst, right? So how important do you think that background was to today, what you're doing every day today?
Extremely important. I think everything I learned as an analyst comes into my day to day, literally every single day as a broker. I mean, I spend so much of my time explaining how we underwrote a deal, where is the upside, look at this comp. And that's something where even as an analyst, or in college, like, we would have to pick comps for a property, and I would literally they gave us access to CoStar, and I would just look up a year bill and then proximity to the property and just pick the first one. Now, I'm looking at that comp and saying, "Okay, do they bill back for water, sewer? Have they done the renovations here? Is it gonna be on par with the renovations that we're underwriting at this property?" And it gets back to what we were talking about earlier, understanding the IRR thresholds, like what are buyers looking for? Those are all things that I learned as an analyst. And I'm gonna give a shout out to Logan because he taught me just about everything I know about underwriting. And that having that base is just it's very key for being able to sell the investments that we're underwriting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that is really the core of our business. And the core of every single conversation that we have is understanding the numbers that go behind these properties. We're selling investments, right? So it's all return driven and understanding exactly how those numbers work, what operations are like on the site level. And I hear so often from owners that they get called on by brokers who, um, when they talk with them, it becomes pretty apparent they have no idea the financial metrics or how properties work or how deals work. And I think that that helps you gain a little bit of trust and respect in just the industry by knowing that. If I had to start over again, I would start over in that position. I would do it. I would not jump right into sales.
As an analyst, it used to annoy me how into the weeds George would get on every single BOE. I mean, we're literally looking line by line at these T12s. And now I understand that's exactly what buyers are doing too. And you need to be able to justify, we're pushing water sewer here because they're only billing back for 70%. We think it should be closer to 85%. And I mean, that's a small thing, but it can have a huge impact on pricing. So,
Right. I have you ever gone back and looked at some of George's old files
mm,
of BOVs he did when he started out? So you think of being in the weeds today, some of those BOVs were like masterpieces, right? Each individual one, because he's a very detailed guy. He knows what he's talking about, and that's how he started. It was based on this brand of credibility. And not only was there a BOV, but then it came with a cover letter that then explained the BOV. And so, as you can pick, like when we send BOVs, we send an email. An email is a lot more less formal than a cover letter. And it also, it's like, let's jump on a call and discuss, right?
Yep.
At the end of the email, it's like, here are some high level bullet points. Let's talk about it. That those cover letters are like, this is how this BOV was done. And it just walks you through the whole thought process. Very, very well written. You can understand how he got to this point of being so in the details. It's like, that was the core of his business 20, 30 years ago, right?
I'd be curious to know how many BOVs he was doing a year when he was putting together cover letters for every single one.
I know. I know. It would be tough to do today.
Yeah.
I don't remember our exact year-to-date BOV count, but it's like more than a BOV a day by a lot. It would be difficult to keep up with those types of numbers. Yeah. Um, do you think that you doing 100% unit walks at Riverbend and being a part of that due diligence process taught you a lot as well?
Oh, definitely. So Kimberly Fetzer was on our team at Cushman and Wakefield, and she kind of gave me a base in understanding the due diligence process, everything from putting the deal under contract to getting it closed. And you're learning about prorations, all the different inspections that need to go on. And then I feel like I've learned quite a bit from Hannah and George too, because you're doing those things, but in between, you're hearing from the buyer and seller, we've got this issue, and it's all about how can we deal with those issues? Because that's really our job is to help the seller get these deals closed and get paid. And that's a huge part of our job. I always thought it was kind of like we would pass that off to Joey on our team and it just is smooth sailing from there. That's definitely not the case. It takes heavy lifting, and that's where having the team is so helpful because the brokers are dealing with the buyer and seller while Joey's working on the back end stuff and she's handling the property managers complaining about what's going on at the site. And there's so much more to it than just put it under contract, get it closed.
Right. That's one of the parts I love about being a part of our team and how big our team is that we have people specialized for every step of the way. So if I have a question about a financial question about a property that we're BOVing or we have listed, Logan can always speak really well about the minor details of each property, right? So, you understand a lot of it, but Logan has spent hours in that. Or you're like, oh, I'm dealing with this title issue on this property. Joey for sure knows the answer. Right. She's done it so many times and she's been in the weeds on so many deals that you can quickly learn. It's not like you have to start from scratch and go call a local expert and set up a meeting and all that. It's like, no, I just stopped by their desk right there. The best of the business right there. Right. And so what do you think the hardest part of your job is today? What's the hardest part?
Doing podcasts.
Doing podcasts?
Yeah. No, I would say that the hardest part about being a broker is cold calling, and it's not even, once you've started doing the cold calling, you get in like a rhythm. You're kind of saying all the same things. Obviously, it's different based on who you're calling, but it's really the build up to doing the cold calling. I think there's just a little bit of like a tick in the back of your mind that makes you a little bit nervous before those calls, because that's really what our business comes down to. Can you win listings, and then can we sell them? And so those are the two hardest parts. It's really doing the cold calling, winning that business. And then once you've won it, it's finding that buyer. And so we're making hundreds of calls on every listing and just scrambling to find the best buyer at the highest price. And that's really the most difficult part of the job.
Right. To me, the hardest part is as you get busier, continuing to stick to your processes, staying organized. It's like the more things you have to work on, the more important it is that you're writing down notes on the calls and that those notes go somewhere so you can refer back to them. Or staying on top of every minor detail. It's like you always have to be in your business working. And then also the other hard part, I think this is a struggle for a lot of young people is when the deals get tough, how do you deal with those negotiations, right? I remember George teaching me a long time ago on a deal, negotiating a credit on a property. And he was like, you talk and I will just kind of guide you through the conversation. And so we get a number from the buyer that they're asking and we get a number from the seller that they're like, go back to them at this number. And I call the buyer and I start presenting it and I'm talking and I'm talking. I'm talking. George kind of is like, calm down, let him speak, right? And it's like just learning, and then the guy accepts, and I start to say something. He just puts me on mute. He's like, no more. Don't renegotiate after we finalize the deal.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
just-
do think that another hard part is like when you award a deal and you've got two groups who are right there at the top, maybe even at the same price, but one has slightly better terms, or we've worked with them before, so they get awarded the deal, and then you have to call that second place group and give them the bad news. It's never taken
Ugh.
well, and so those conversations can be hard, and that's something that you just kind of get used to over time.
You struggle with breaking hearts. Well, what other fun thing that I thought would be the podcast is I'm going to ask you this or that type questions. You can answer it and we can dig into it, or you can just answer it. Some of them are real estate related. Some of them are office culture related. Some are just completely random. Okay. Value add or new construction. What do you like to work on?
As a younger person, value add, I think as I got later in my career, I'd lean more towards the new construction, kind of more stable deals.
Because why do you think value adds better for younger?
I just think I'd love to hit a home run on a deal where you can go 3x in 3 years, take your money out and put it into something new. Whereas, when you're getting closer to retirement, you're just looking for those stable returns. You're not going to want to, obviously home runs are always great, but you don't want a deal that could totally fall apart because a huge renovation process just isn't going well, or you can't hit those pro forma rents that you were hoping to push 400 and, you only end up getting 250. I think that's easier to swallow earlier on in your career than later.
Downtown or suburbs?
I'd say again, it depends on age. I think downtown right now is fun. I think later on when you're having a family, suburbs. Or you mean real estate?
Yeah, you can answer however you want.
Real estate? You know, it's no secret. Urban's been a little tougher than suburban recently, so I'm probably gonna have to go suburban.
Garden style or mid-rise?
I would say it doesn't really matter to me. As long as the rents are right and there's upside, I would say it doesn't matter.
What is the better feeling? When you win the listing or when you close the deal?
Ooh. I think winning the listing because I mean our team does such a great job of finding buyers and getting the deals closed. I don't want to say it's a given. Obviously, it's never a given, but we feel confident that we can get them closed. So winning the business is really more exciting, I think.
Ohio State or IU?
Oh, easily IU.
IU.
Hoosiers.
My two favorites, Chipotle or Sweet Green?
Every single day I ask Cam, we go to lunch today, and he says either brought my lunch or Chipotle or Sweet Green. And the answer is always Chipotle. Sweet Green's good, but Chipotle is just a classic.
College football or NFL?
Oh, college football. I grew up huge Michigan fan, so just and we didn't have a professional team in Columbus. I think that's part of it. Like you guys have the Colts here, and obviously there's the Browns in Cleveland and the Bengals in Cincy, but they both suck. So not a whole lot to root for there. So I think definitely college.
Texting or calling?
For business calling, for personal texting.
Did you talk to text?
I don't use talk to text very often. I feel like it messes up what I'm saying.
Voice memos?
I never use voice memos. Might have to expand my repertoire.
Gatorade or Powerade?
Gatorade.
No questions asked.
No questions asked. Powerade's just not it.
Pickles or olives?
Neither? I guess I like pickles on like a cheeseburger, but I would never eat either one, just plain.
Sedan or SUV?
You know, I've had 2 sedans, so I gotta go sedans.
All right. Well, I think this is a good podcast. I think it was fun. We'll have to do more of these.
It was. It'd be good to get everybody meeting the rest of the team.
Yeah. Well, unless you have anything else you want to talk about, I think we're good to wrap it up.
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining and listening. And remember what George always says, you're only as good as your next deal. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay in the loop by hitting that subscribe button and check the show notes for additional resources.